Hey guys, my name is Steve Guttenberg and I am the Audiophiliac. And today, what I have in mind for today is a trip to the outer limits of sound quality, of digital sound quality. And my, quote, spaceship for the trip is the Mola Tambaqui. I think it might be. I'm pretty sure it is the best sounding DAC, the best sounding digital converter I have ever heard in this room. I want to put the Tambaqui's accomplishment in some sort of context here, right? So I'm going to tell you briefly what I've had in this room, and this is by no means a complete list. But I started with a Meridian DAC. And then I had a Theta, actually a few Theta DACs pass through here. Then I had a Wadia, and a couple of Wadias passed through here. And then a Sim Audio, and then an Air, and then missing something. But anyway, then I had Denafreps here for quite some time. It's my current reference DAC. And now the Tambaqui. So I've heard the good stuff, but there's something really, really special about the sound of this DAC. Now, this review, today's review, kind of was set in motion back in May when I reviewed the Mola Kula integrated amplifier. And that amp had the optional DAC stage, which is basically the same thing as the Tambaqui. So I had a taste of what the Tambaqui would sound like even before the Tambaqui was here. So when I sent back the Kula to the distributor, GTT Audio, I requested, hey, could you guys send me the Tambaqui? I love the Kula, but I'm more interested in the DAC. So they said, sure. So they sent me the DAC, and now I've been listening to it for, well, since June. And, you know, this is the best way to review something where you're not thinking about creating the review or writing the review. It's just there. And you're living with this piece over time, and you just accept it as the norm. Anyway, I'm going to get into the whole methodology later, but yeah, it made a very strong impression. Now, as to why it sounds different and better, you know, I have to admit that I'm not the best guy to explain technically why the Mola sounds the way it does, or that it sounds different and or better than other DACs, except to say that most DACs, including high-end ones, a lot of them have off-the-shelf DAC chip sets. That's not true for the Mola. And there's a lot of high-end DACs that use resistor ladder DACs, discrete resistor ladder DACs, and that's not true for the Mola either. Now the Mola DAC, the digital conversion part of the DAC, was designed by Bruno Puzzi, and he is the man. He is the number crunching digital conversion guy. Everyone says he is. I never met him. I've heard interviews with him and stuff. The guy seems like he's definitely up on this. But he created a DSP program that does the digital to analog conversion. And that is completely unique to Mola products. And I'd say that's why. That's pretty much all I got. So as for the object itself, the Tambaqui as a piece of gear. Well, first of all, it's nice and compact. You know, unlike a lot of high-end stuff that has to advertise its power by being big. Now, this is a less than half-width component. I'm pretty sure it would be less than half-width. But it feels incredibly inert. If you wrap your knuckles on the top of that wavy aluminum top, you hear no resonance whatsoever. It's just a solid piece of cabinetry. The front is super simple. It's got four little tiny silver buttons, and those 4 buttons select up to 4 inputs. You can use the Tambaqui without an app or without a remote, just with those 4 selector buttons. But you can access more of what makes it good by using the Mola app. Here it is on the screen. It's super simple. It's not a lot of options unless you go into the menu, and even then, there's not that much to it. So even if you're not an app kind of guy, I wouldn't be afraid of using this app. I'm going to put up the complete specs right now for you people that are into the numbers and specs. Now, of course, as I've led up to this, well, it is expensive. The price is $13,400. The inputs and outputs, even though space is a bit cramped back there, are pretty complete. But let's just go through it. First of all, there's an Ethernet input, so you can use Mola as an endpoint, as a Rune endpoint, if that's your thing. But there's also, of course, AES EBU, meaning the balanced input. There's a USB input, there's coax input, there's an optical input, and my favorite input is the I2S, which is how I connected the J's Audio CDT Mark III transport, the CD transport. As for the outputs, well, the outputs are actually kind of limited, though there are two headphone jacks, a standard 6.3 millimeter one, and also a 4-pin XLR analog output for headphones. As for the main outputs, well, there was only room for the XLR, the balanced outputs. There's no RCA outputs, but they include a set of very high quality XLR to RCA adapters. So I listen to Tambaqui with both, alternatively, right? I listen through the RCA adapters and also with the balanced output. I slightly prefer the balanced output, but in either case, they both sound amazing. By the way, it does run warm to the touch. But again, you might want to keep touching it because it feels so good. No knob feel on this one, but in terms of just the build quality is so impressive. It is handcrafted, if I didn't mention it, in the Netherlands. Regarding the headphone output, I used the Tambaqui with three really solid headphones. The Sony MDR Z1R, which is their flagship model as far as I know, and also the Abyss Diana, great headphone, and also my old but ever faithful Audeze LCD XC, which is the closed back version. If you're a casual headphone listener who's just going to listen, you have to listen late at night or something like that, it's more than adequate. But if you're a heavy headphone person, you'd probably want to use a headphone amplifier with the Tambaqui. As I said in the intro, it sounds different than other DACs. And I mean different, not just different, but better in the sense that it doesn't sound digital. And how do I mean that? Well, it doesn't have that kind of pronounced edge, that a little tipped up maybe, little pushed sound that digital does that's like beyond realistic levels of detail. Maybe that's the way I should say it, yeah. It's a little more laid back than that, but it is not laid back. This is a very, very, very high resolution device. And when I say high resolution, I'm not meaning like in your face detail. I'm talking about this open, big, enveloping sound that nothing feels pushed. Yeah, that's how to say it. It doesn't feel pushed. It just is, which is kind of like the way music sounds in real life. Real life music does not, when you hear acoustic music that's not being amplified, it doesn't have that kind of aggressive detail to it. No, not at all. But when we're listening to recordings, well, remember that pretty much all recordings are made with close mic placement. So the mics are unlike what we hear in real life, where your ear isn't directly above a violin or a piano. Well, in recordings, the mic, the listening device, is within close proximity of the instruments. So in that sense, recordings can never sound like you're really there. But I think with Tambaqui, it does get me some of that balance of lots and lots of detail, lots and lots of room sound and space, but never with a push to it. So I also did a quickie comparison, and it only needed to be quick, with the Denafreps Terminator. And you know what? And I was using the band Can, their album called Future Days. It's German progressive rock from 1973. And man, talk about space and a big open sound. They totally nailed it. It's incredible. It's weird to think they called it Future Days 49 years ago, and it sounds like actually better than most contemporary recordings. And it is rock with textures and layers and dynamics, all kinds of stuff going on in there. It's very, very dense. And the Terminator was doing a really good job, but switching over to the Tambaqui, just heard, it just layers opened up, veils were lifted, all that kind of stuff. It just sounded so much clearer over the Tambaqui. One day I was looking around on Qobuz and I found this recording by Trond Kalivag. I can't begin to pronounce the name of the album, but it's up on the screen now. And it is one of those, yikes. It sounds like Eno. It sounds like Eno. It sounds like Ry Cooder. Even sounds like George Harrison or Daniel Lanois, because it's electric guitar and violin. It's all instrumental, but it's so beautiful. You know, saw as a musical instrument, glasses, you know, somebody's finger on a glass making it resonate. It's so atmospheric and so deep, but it goes in a million different places. You know, it could be even classified as electronic music because there was synths in it and stuff, but the predominant sound is of that beautiful slide guitar. Oh, it's amazing recording. Really good sounding. Matter of fact, I bought the CD because I was streaming it off Qobuz, and the CD sounds even better in this kind of tactile, reach out and touch the instruments kind of sound, but also big space, bigger on the CD than it is streaming from Qobuz. Another piece of music that I just hit me really, really hard was this Nick Bartish album. It's called Continuum, and the track, I'll be very specific about the track, it's called Module 4. And it's jazz, but this track has this incredible rock-style drumming. Not fast or splashy, just this powerful, just feel it in your gut groove that the drums are pounding out. And there's electric guitars, there's other things happening, but it's just the groove on this album that was so intense, really, really intense. It was one of those I had to play it loud. You know, I do these things, the loud part, in the afternoon when my neighbors aren't around, and I was playing it like 90, 95 dB peaks, and the groove was intense. So powerful sounding, and that again, I was hearing those leading edges on the drums and on the cymbals were so clear, so pure, so precise. And the low end, by the way, coming off the Tambaqui is, if anything, it feels a little light, but it isn't really that it's light, it's just that it's so tight and fast and quick and taut that it can come across as being a little too thin. I don't think it's thin, I think it's just telling you what's really in the recording. It seems that way to me. So okay, now we're going to do the, so Steve, what did you really think section of the review? Well, it should come as no surprise to anybody out there. This is freaking amazing. This is the best DAC I've ever had here. Because it just connects the dots. It's just more like the visceral response of music. The leading edge, the rhythm and pace, this live quality that it delivers is addicting. It truly, truly is. Are there any downsides? Well, the price, yeah, $13,400. That might be a significant roadblock for many of you. But in terms of advancing the state of the art, yeah, I think so. I really do. Now, I'm not the first to do a review of the Tambaqui. There's been others. It's just the way the sequence works sometimes. But yes, so Bruno Puzzi is some kind of number crunching genius that he figured how to do this. He didn't have to tweak somebody else's DAC. He just did it on his own. So awesome, awesome, awesome. Speaking of awesome, it is now time for the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. So here we go. Greg sent this in. He lives in Delaware. He has two systems in one. For the 2 part of the system, Greg is running a Dynaco PAS2 preamp and a VTA ST-120 Power Amp kit. That amp is driving those sweet-looking Altec Bolero 890C speakers. The solid-state system sports a Luxman C-1010 preamp and a Luxman M1500 Power Amp feeding JBL L-200 speakers. Greg says the sound is clean and the bass from those 15-inch woofers is super detailed. Each system has its own Schiit Modi 3 DAC. The turntable is a restored Thorens TD-124 with an Ortofon RMG-212 tonearm and a Hana EH moving coil cartridge. The reel-to-reel is a Teac 4010S. Cables are by Harmonic Technology, Kimber, and Audioquest. Double wow, triple wow. That is amazing, Greg. Thanks for sending it in. Okay, we're back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. Yeah, if you like this review, and you must have because you've gotten this far into the show, please consider subscribing to the channel. Join the 195,000 plus subscribers that are already here. And if you have already subscribed, thank you so much for doing so. And then, of course, I could bring up the subject of the Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/Audiophiliac, and there is definitely a link to that in the description. And after that, I can pretty much say, yeah, my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.